How free is the press in Ethiopia? What happens when journalists become the story instead of reporting it? These are questions that have recently come to the forefront of global consciousness. Freedom of press, a cornerstone of any democracy, is currently under scrutiny in Ethiopia, a country known for its rich cultural mosaic and, unfortunately, its domestic conflicts. Let's delve into the story of Antoine Galindo, a French journalist who now finds himself shackled by unseen chains in Ethiopia. Galindo, 36 years old and head of the East Africa section for Africa Intelligence, landed on Ethiopian soil on the 13th of February. He was there to cover the African Union summit in Addis Ababa, the very heart of the Pan-African organization. However, his mission was cut short on the 22nd of February when he was arrested by Ethiopian authorities. The accusation? Allegedly conspiring to create chaos in the country. It's an allegation that his employer, Africa Intelligence, vehemently denies, branding the charges as fallacious and not substantiated by any tangible evidence. This is not Galindo's first stint in Ethiopia. He resided there between 2013 and 2017, during which time he served as a correspondent for several international media outlets. He is a journalist well known to the Ethiopian Media Authority, with a visa explicitly authorizing him to practice his profession in the country. Yet here he is, caught in the crossfire of his profession, facing an uncertain future. His arrest has stirred global concern, shedding light on the precarious state of press freedom in Ethiopia. This is the story of Antoine Galindo, a journalist caught in the crossfire of his profession. Antoine Galindo landed in Ethiopia on February 13, 2024, with a purpose. He had traveled to the heart of Africa to cover the African Union summit in Addis Ababa. As head of the East Africa section for Africa Intelligence, Antoine was no stranger to the vibrant and often volatile landscape of African politics. A journalist known to the Ethiopian Media Authority, he had all the necessary permissions. He was armed with a visa, a notepad, and a purpose. A purpose to shed light on the events shaping the continent, to give a voice to the voiceless, and to report the truth as he saw it unfold. But within 10 days of his arrival, this purpose was to be challenged. On February 22nd, Antoine was arrested by the Ethiopian authorities. Conspiring to create chaos within the country is a serious charge, especially in Ethiopia, a country that is home to over 120 million people and a mosaic of some 80 ethno-linguistic communities. The accusations sent shockwaves through the international community. Africa Intelligence, Antoine's employer, was quick to denounce these charges as fallacious. They stated that these accusations were not based on any tangible evidence and called for Antoine's immediate release. The Ethiopian authorities remained silent when questioned about the arrest, a situation that shed light on the appalling context for the press in general in Ethiopia, a country described by the Committee to Protect Journalists as the second worst jailer of journalists in sub-Saharan Africa. The accusations were severe, but were they backed by evidence? This question lingers as we delve deeper into the case of Antoine Galindo, a journalist caught in the crossfire of truth and power. On February 22, 2024, Antoine Galindo found himself behind bars. The head of the East Africa section for Africa Intelligence, Galindo was no stranger to Ethiopia. He had spent 4 years as a correspondent for several international media outlets, living and working in the country. But this was different. This was not a story of conflict to be reported, but a personal clash with a system that stood accused of silencing the press. Arrested and accused of conspiring to create chaos, Galindo was brought before a judge on February 24th. His detention was extended until March 1st, with no tangible evidence to support the allegations against him. Ethiopian authorities remained silent on the matter, adding fuel to the growing fire of speculation and concern. It was a worrying sign for press freedom in a country already known as the second worst jailer of journalists in sub-Saharan Africa, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. This arrest was not just an issue for Galindo, his colleagues, or even just the media. It was a confrontation with the rights of individuals to speak, to question, to challenge. It was a question of the power of the state versus the power of the individual. It was about the freedom of the press to hold those in power accountable, without fear of retribution. A journalist was now a prisoner, his voice silenced by the very system he sought to illuminate. This is not just the story of Antoine Galindo, but of countless others who find themselves facing injustice behind bars. The fight for press freedom continues, even as the chains of repression attempt to silence it. His stories were not just reports. They were narratives that painted a vivid picture of Ethiopia for the rest of the world. His words, his observations, his reflections, they all echoed the pulse of the nation, its triumphs and its tribulations. Antoine was not merely an observer, he was a storyteller who breathed life into the intricacies of the Ethiopian landscape. However, it's essential to remember that Antoine's relationship with Ethiopia was formed against a backdrop of an increasingly precarious climate for press freedom. Despite this, there were periods of hope. When Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took office in 2018, the situation for freedom of expression and press in Ethiopia showed signs of improvement. But this was short-lived. By 2020, the nation was once again embroiled in conflict, and the space for free speech began to shrink, with the country imprisoning several Ethiopian journalists and expelling numerous foreign reporters. Antoine's arrest in 2024 is a testament to the deteriorating state of press freedom in Ethiopia. It's a stark deviation from his previous stint in the country, where he was able to exercise his role as a journalist relatively unhindered. Now he finds himself behind bars, caught in the crossfire of a battle for truth and transparency. The past was a prologue, but the present was a stark deviation. This deviation is a sobering reminder of the challenges that journalists face in their quest to shed light on the realities on the ground, and a call to action for the global community to stand up for press freedom. Antoine Galindo's story is a chilling reminder of the perils faced by journalists around the world. His incarceration on groundless charges of conspiring chaos has sparked a wave of international outcry. From the corridors of his employer, Africa Intelligence, to the desks of global press freedom advocates, the call for Antoine's immediate release rings loud and clear. The Committee to Protect Journalists, a stalwart in the fight for press freedom, has squarely denounced Antoine's arrest as unjust. His detention, they argue, sheds a glaring spotlight on the appalling conditions for the press in Ethiopia. The country, they note, is the second worst jailer of journalists in sub-Saharan Africa, a sobering testament to the dangers faced by those who dare to report the truth. Antoine's arrest is not just about one journalist. It's about the broader implications for press freedom in Ethiopia and around the world. It's about the right to report, to question, to challenge, without fear of retribution. It's about the essential role of a free press in shining a light on the often murky corridors of power. When a journalist is silenced, we all lose. We lose a voice that questions, that probes, that seeks to uncover the truth. We lose a window into the world, a perspective that challenges our own, a mirror that reflects the realities of our time. And so we must not stand idly by. We must not let Antoine's voice be silenced. We must not let the light of truth be dimmed by the dark walls of an Ethiopian prison cell. It's time to break the silence. Share this story. Raise your voice for press freedom in Ethiopia. Demand Antoine Galindo's immediate release. For Antoine, for every journalist who risks their life to tell the story, for the freedom of press, for the truth,